Hello everyone, my name is Giridhari and today we're starting our Uddhava-gita series. Now this is going to be a huge series. I did a Portuguese version of this series and it took me 7 years, 287 classes. I don't know how long it's going to take in English, but this is a long-term project. And what is the Uddhava-gita? Uddhava-gita is a wonderful, very special book which doesn't get enough attention because everybody hears of the Bhagavad Gita. But what is the Uddhava-gita? Uddhava-gita is Krishna's last instructions, only 7 days before he leaves the planet. So this is the last instructions which he gives to Uddhava. Of course, the Bhagavad Gita, it's Krishna speaking with the warrior Arjuna, his good friend, cousin, and great warrior Arjuna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Now, the Uddhava-gita is Krishna in his palace in Dwaraka, speaking with his minister and close friend, the most intelligent person on the planet, Uddhava, because Krishna says that he is the most intelligent person on the planet. So this is a conversation at peace, just the two of them. The most intelligent listener in the planet, Uddhava, with the source of all intelligence, Supreme God, Krishna speaking. So you can just imagine what an amazing conversation this is and how brilliantly important this Uddhava-gita is. I just love the Uddhava-gita. I've been teaching it and reading it for decades and decades, and it's just wonderful, and more people have to hear it. So I'm finally doing it in English, and what we're going to be doing is we'll be using the BBT version of the Srimad Bhagavatam with the translation and commentaries by the followers of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and we'll be going through the whole thing. So I'll be reading the translation and the comments and then explaining them to you. That's why it's such a huge course. Now, the way this is going to work is like this. I'll be posting classes basically weekly, and they will be freely available for 7 days. After that time, I will move them over to the members only section. So if you want to have access to it, always make sure you become a member of the channel. There's a little button here for member, and there will be a link. If you don't know, just leave a comment and ask. So you become a member, you join the Bhakti Club, and then you'll have access to these classes as long as you're a member. Okay? So let's get started. So what happens is the Uddhava-gita, you'll find the Uddhava-gita in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Of course, Srimad Bhagavatam, beautiful, the most important book we have, the Srimad Bhagavatam, where you have the entire description of Krishna's stay here. In the 10th canto, it starts with the coming of Krishna, and then you have the 11th canto, it goes on a bit, and then most of the 11th canto, Uddhava-gita. So it starts actually on chapter 7 of the 11th canto, the Uddhava-gita, and we'll go on to chapter 29. So it's 23 chapters. You know, the Bhagavad Gita is 18 chapters. This is 23. So it's bigger than the Bhagavad Gita. It's deeper than the Bhagavad Gita. It's absolutely amazing. So let's get started here. So Krishna is about to leave. He's going to leave the planet, like I said, in 7 days. And he's going to leave some instructions with Uddhava. He's going to explain why. And it's going to go from there. So let's get started. So this is now the 11th canto, chapter 7, verse 1. And I'll read you the translation and commentaries. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "O greatly fortunate Uddhava, you have accurately revealed my desire to withdraw the Yadu dynasty from the earth and return to my own abode in Vaikuntha. Thus, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and all other planetary rulers are now praying for me to resume my residence in Vaikuntha." So what happens is, Uddhava was like, there's something going on here. I'm picking up some vibes. What's going on, Krishna? And Krishna says, yes, we're about to wrap things up here on the planet. We're about to leave, Krishna, right? He's God, Avatara. He comes down, crosses down to this reality, came down, took care of everything, took care of the Asura invasion, straightened everything out, left the teachings of yoga. So, everything's done now and he's ready to go back. And, you can't have God and all these avatars hanging around, that's not normality. You have to return to normality. So he had to go. It's time for him to go. And even the rulers, Lord Brahma, Shiva, they're all like, okay, thank you. We'll take it from here. Okay, we got this now. Because remember, they prayed for him to come down. The world was a mess. The Asuras were taking over. So Lord Brahma and all the planetary rulers, they actually went and prayed for Krishna to come down. That's how the whole coming of Krishna happens. They are all like, please come down. We need your help. This is it. We can't do this without you. But now they're saying, okay, thank you. We got this. We'll take it from here. Purport. Each and every demigod has his particular abode in the heavenly planets within the material universe. So we're talking about this universe, different planets, different regions of the universe, star systems, whatever you want to call them. So those are within the materials. So the demigods, the suras, they live in these places. They're not from the spiritual world. But Krishna says, I want to go back to my place, my transcendental abode. That's where I live. It's like beyond here. Translated here is Vaikuntha, Swavasam. Although Lord Vishnu is sometimes counted among the demigods, his abode is in Vaikuntha, the spiritual sky. The demigods are universal controllers within the kingdom of Maya, but Vishnu is the Lord of the illusory potency and many other spiritual potencies. His exalted residence does not lie within the kingdom of his insignificant maidservant, Maya. Lord Vishnu, the personality of Godhead, is the supreme Lord of all lords. The demigods are his separated parts and parcels, as are we. Being themselves minute jiva souls like you and me, the demigods are under the influence of the potency of Maya. But Lord Vishnu is always the supreme controller of Maya. The personality of Godhead is the reservoir and root of all existence, and the material world is just a dim reflection of the brilliant scenery of his eternal spiritual abode, where everything is infinitely beautiful and pleasurable. Vishnu is the supreme reality, and no living entity can ever be equal to or greater than him. The Lord exists within his own unique category as Vishnu Tattva, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All other prominent or extraordinary living entities owe their positions and potencies to the Lord. This is a very important point in bhakti and spiritual science to understand. Anything that anyone has is coming from God. So any amount of money, wealth, fame, power, ability, whatever you have, it's coming from God. It's not coming from us. It's not independent. It's always coming. We're always dependent on God. Everything you have, all you can do is only thanks to God. Ultimately, Vishnu himself is a plenary expansion of Lord Krishna, the original source of all Vishnu Tattva and Jiva Tattva expansions. Thus, Lord Krishna, the speaker of the Uddhava-gita, is the basis of everything. Verse 2. Answering the prayer of Lord Brahma, I descended within this world along with my plenary portion, Lord Baladeva, and performed various activities on behalf of the demigods. I have now completed my mission here. So he's telling you, Uddhava, look, remember they called me, I came down also with my, what's plenary? What does that word mean, plenary? I got stuck with this word for 4 years until like, oh, yeah, right. Plenary is from, it means full, complete form, right? Plenary means complete expansion. So Baladeva is a complete expansion, a full, self-standing expansion of God, Baladeva, Krishna's brother. So I have come down, I've completed my mission here. You know, it's time to go. Verse 3. Now, due to the Brahmana's curse, the Yadu dynasty will certainly perish by fighting among themselves. And on the 7th day from today, the ocean will rise up and inundate this city of Dwarka. This is amazing. So what's happening is this. So Krishna comes down, and he comes down Avatara, and you know, I don't know if you know this, but Krishna, amongst his leelas, is he marries 16,108 wives to show his godly potency. And with each one, he was expanded. He would expand himself and be present with all of the 16,108 wives. He would be there with them every day. It wasn't that he was like sharing, okay, no, I don't have time for you today, and no, I've got her today, and you have to wait. Maybe next month I'll have some time. No, he was there with all of them all the time, just to show, like, just to let people understand the nature of God, that he can expand himself, be fully present simultaneously. This is a very important point in the Leelas, in understanding how you will relate with God when you go back home, back to Godhead, hopefully after this lifetime, that you will be there with Krishna, face to face. You might think about me, Krishna won't have, I'm not going to go because Krishna won't have any time for me. But he will, because he will expand himself and he will relate with you personally. And you'll see other people, you'll see other associates, and you'll be like there with like, oh, there's so many people here, but Krishna's paying attention to me. You'll be thinking like that. It's like there's so many other people here. But he'll be there with you because everybody else will be thinking the same thing. Oh, Krishna's just with me. So Krishna has this pose, it's called Yoga Maya. So he can be with everyone, and at the same time you're like, oh, there's other people, but he's with me. So he was doing that here on earth as well. So he was expanding here, he was doing that just to show that, like, I'm God, I'm not a regular human being. So he was doing that, and with each wife, to play the part, he had 10 children. So this is the Yadu dynasty. So you imagine 16,108 times 10, you have 161,800 children. So now this is a huge, and all these are special avatars. They're, you don't get to be, direct son of God, with, playing with daddy, like, not the son of God in the Christian sense of like, oh, he's the son of, but actually like really the son of God, like, Krishna is your daddy and you're playing with him and you're on his knees and, the whole thing. So you don't get to do that, of course you have to be an avatar, only these souls who are already liberated, eternal associates of God get to have that position. So they've come down. So all these, basically you have 160, more than 161,000 avatars. And so these are very powerful. These are transcendental beings. These are supremely powerful beings. And they're all here. And it's like, again, they can't stay. My spiritual master, Hridayananda Das Goswami Maharaj, she gives this very interesting example. He says, imagine you have a little town, okay? You have a little town in nowhere, USA or UK or wherever you live. So there's this little town, and there's some terrorist activity there. They find a terrorist cell. So then, let's say all these powerful, black-clad, heavy-duty, special forces types, people come in, and they come in and they deal with those terrorists. But then they have to leave as well, because if they stay, they're going to ruin the city as well, right? It's a little town. It can't handle having like 50, super, special forces types hanging around, right? They're going to become a problem too. So it's the same thing when Krishna comes down. He does all these things, but then they have to leave. But how do you get all these people to leave because nobody can kill them. They're too powerful. They're like, nobody can get rid of them. So what Krishna did is he arranges for this special curse. He arranges all of them to offend a Brahmin and to teach, like that's, also to leave the message of proper respect to Brahmins and, and the gurus and spiritual people. So he sets it up so they get cursed. So they're gonna fight each other. And the curse is that they're gonna fight each other. So right after this is over, the Uddhava-gita, you'll see that the final chapters of the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, you'll see that, okay, the next thing is the Yadu dynasty killing themselves off. So they're going to do themselves in, and so they all go because they're the only ones who could get rid of themselves are themselves. So anyway, so the Yadu dynasty will certainly perish. He knows that. He set it all up. They were going to perish by infighting, and to really wipe the wipe traces clean, he's going to raise the ocean up because Dwarka is an island. It's an island city, island capital, and he's going to make sure that this ocean rises up and buries Dwarka. And it's super interesting because if you Google Dwarka, just Google Dwarka, like ancient Dwarka, you'll see pictures of underwater, like remains of an underwater city. It's really fascinating. You can actually find pictures of underwater Dwarka. Look it up on Google. Okay, so he's like, yeah, I'm going to leave. Purport. In this and the following verses, Lord Krishna indicates to Uddhava that he should immediately fix himself in self-realization and by giving up all identification with the material world. Srila Jiva Goswami has pointed out that the Yadu dynasty was not actually destroyed by Lord Krishna, but merely removed from the vision of the world through the curse of the Brahmanas. Similarly, the Lord's eternal abode, Dwaraka, can never be drowned by the ocean. Nevertheless, all external approaches to this transcendental city were covered by the ocean, and thus the Lord's abode remains inaccessible to foolish persons in Kali Yuga, as will be described later in this canto. By the Lord's mystic potency called Yoga Maya, he reveals his own form, abode, paraphernalia, pastimes, entourage, and so on. And at the suitable time, he removes all of these forms from mundane sight. Although bewildered conditioned souls may doubt the spiritual potency of the Lord, the pure devotees can directly perceive and relish his transcendental appearance and disappearance, which are described in Bhagavad-gita as Janma Karma Chamedhivyam. If one faithfully accepts this perfect knowledge of the Lord's transcendental nature, then surely one will go back home, back to Godhead, and become an eternal companion of Lord Krishna. So, this Janma Karma Chamedhivyam, this is from Bhagavad-gita, chapter 4, verse 9, where Krishna says that if you just understand the transcendental nature of his appearance, activities, and disappearance, you will not take another birth. If there's one, I always tell my students, if there's one line from Bhagavad-gita which gives you like the easiest way out, if there's like the easiest way to become enlightened and never take birth again, it's this one line. Krishna says just this thing. It's Janma Karma Chamedhivyam. If you just understand my janma, my birth, my karma, my activities, you will not take birth again. So it's very easy. So try to understand that and you won't have to take birth again. Especially now that Kali Yuga is getting, even worse. It's definitely a good project to not take birth again. Very good. So let's go on now to verse 4. O saintly Uddhava, in the near future, I will abandon this earth. Then, being overwhelmed by the age of Kali, the earth will be bereft of all piety. Scary stuff. So Krishna is saying, look, I'm about to leave. And it's understood that when Krishna left about 5,000 years ago, the day he leaves is the day Kali Yuga begins, because Kali Yuga couldn't begin with Krishna here. You couldn't have Kali Yuga with the Lord himself present on earth. Like Kali Yuga is like, ooh, you know, it was suspended, it was on hold. But the day he left, Kali Yuga then begins. And he says, the earth will be bereft of all piety. Well, if you have any doubt, just, you know, tune into the news and you'll see that there's no piety. I mean, where's the piety? And, you know, right now as I'm recording this, unfortunately, Ukraine is being bombarded, you know, civilians and babies and children, and, you know, being bombarded by, you know, the orders of a madman. So this is complete lack of piety, right? So to send bombs and missiles into urban centers is the maximum level of lack of piety. Like, how can you not care that you're using bombs to kill babies? It's like, you know, it's just too crazy. It's beyond crazy. It's beyond insane. It's beyond evil. It's madness and evil to the maximum. So this is lack of piety. This is the kind of thing that happens in Kali Yuga, of course. And, you know, this is just now, right here in Europe, you know, and it's, of course, you know, this is happening all the time, all over the place, so much evil. So this is Kali Yuga. So he's saying, look, Uddhava, you know, Kali Yuga is going to begin. So he's going to tell Uddhava, you better get out of here. don't hang around for Kali Yuga. And that was like the beginning of Kali Yuga 5,000 years ago. So you can imagine our situation now. Purport. Lord Krishna's plan was to bring Uddhava back to his eternal abode after a brief delay. Because of Uddhava's extraordinary spiritual qualities, the Lord wanted to engage him in propagating his message among other saintly people who were not yet advanced to the stage of pure devotional service, pure bhakti. However, the Lord assured Uddhava that he would not be bereft of the Lord's association for even a moment. Also, because Uddhava had become a perfect master of his senses, Swami, master of yourself, he had become a perfect master of his senses, he would never be afflicted by the three modes of material nature. In this way, before bringing Uddhava back home, back to Godhead, the Lord empowered him to carry out a specific confidential mission. So we're going to understand that this whole Uddhava-gita, like, why is Krishna telling Uddhava this whole Uddhava-gita package? Why is he, you know, downloading this whole Uddhava-gita package to Uddhava, you know, if it's time to go? It's because he wants Uddhava to take this message to a certain group of yogis. We're going to hear about that soon. Wherever, the supreme position of the personality of Godhead is not recognized, useless mental speculation becomes very prominent. And the safe and sure path of hearing perfect Vedic knowledge becomes covered by the chaos of mental concoction. At the present time, especially in the Western countries, literally millions of books are being published on hundreds and thousands of subjects. Yet despite this proliferation of mental concoction, people remain totally in ignorance about the most fundamental issues of human life. Namely, who am I? Where have I come from? Where am I going? What is my soul? What is God? So at some point, you have to ask yourself these questions. That's why we're here, and I'm really glad that you're watching this. This is what this whole series is about, this whole channel is about. At some point, especially this series though, At some point you have to go beyond. It's okay, like of course we want to learn about everything. We want to learn French and ice skating and and how to change habits and how to exercise. Fine. And you want to learn how to use Excel. Fine. Of course. But at some point as well, on top of all that, beyond all that, you have to go into self-realization. You have to go deep into the spiritual science. You have to become a spiritual scientist. And that's when you need Uddhava-gita, Bhagavad-gita, you need the Srimad Bhagavatam, you need this knowledge so you don't just flounder about birth after birth, learning and relearning how to play the piano, how to walk, talk, write, and speak, and build cars and whatever. And then you die, and then you start again, and you're like, okay, how do we walk again? And then you learn how to walk, and then you die, and you're like, oh, how do we walk again? So you have to go beyond. We need this knowledge. And of course, people aren't interested because they are in Maya. They are taken over by the modes of nature, especially the mode of passion and ignorance. The mode of passion makes you want to just have material goals. You want to just buy and conquer and be promoted and become famous, and your mind is just, that's all it thinks about. And in tamas, it's just, you're just like, you're crazy, you're just stupid, you're just lazy, you don't do anything. So people are taken over by these two modes, passion and ignorance. And so they either just not doing anything, just wasting their life, getting drugged and drunk, or they're just, running after like little material goals. Oh, I'm going to get this, I'm going to buy that, I'm going to look like this, and I'm going to get this promotion and get this extra $1 million. And that's all they're thinking about. So we need to go beyond. The personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is the reservoir of innumerable enchanting pastimes, and thus he is the source of innumerable varieties of pleasure. In fact, he is the ocean of eternal pleasure. When the eternal soul is bereft of the constitutional pleasure that comes from loving service to the Lord, to bhakti, he is overwhelmed and bewildered by material nature. He helplessly chases after material sense gratification, thinking that one material object is good and another bad, and constantly changes his assessment of what is good and what is bad. Thus he derives no peace or pleasure, is in constant anxiety, and is repeatedly thrashed by the cruel laws of nature in the form of birth, death, old age, and disease. In this way, the conditioned soul becomes a fit candidate to take birth in Kali Yuga, which is the epitome of misfortune. In Kali Yuga, the living entities who were already suffering from so many tribulations mercilessly turn against one another. Human society in Kali Yuga becomes savagely violent, and men open slaughterhouses to butcher hundreds of millions of innocent creatures. Large-scale wars are declared, and millions of human beings, even women and children, are quickly annihilated. So true, eh? This was written so long ago, but it's so true today. Yeah, it's incredible. Nothing's changed, Right now, I'm reading this, and exactly this is going on. Exactly this is going on. Large-scale wars, millions of human beings, even women and children, being killed. This is Kali Yuga. Unless the living entity recognizes the authority of the personality of Godhead, he remains a helpless victim in the clutches of Maya, or material illusion. He concocts different solutions to release himself from Maya, but these solutions are themselves creations of Maya, and thus cannot possibly release the conditioned soul. In fact, they only intensify his distress. In the next verse, Lord Krishna specifically warns Uddhava to avoid Kali Yuga and go back home. back to Godhead. Those of us who have already taken birth in Kali Yuga should also heed his advice and immediately take all necessary steps to go back to the Lord's eternal abode for a blissful life of perfect knowledge. The material world is never a happy place, especially during the fearful days of Kali Yuga. Very intense. Very intense. So this is it. And this is true. I mean, you know, we get comfortable, especially like, I don't know, maybe more likely if you're watching this in Western, you know, world and you live well and you've got a nice house, a nice car and money in the bank and you haven't had like a day of hunger in your life. Unless you were like on a diet or something. But, you know, so we get comfortable. We oh yeah, it's not too bad. But you can't think like that. You have to think, look, I'm being super lucky. I'm being super lucky. And you are being super lucky. Because if you haven't had like a difficult life, you're being super lucky. Look at the statistics. Look around you. Look at the news. You know, people are, you know, billions of people. They don't have water. They don't have, you know, food regularly. It's just like horrible governments. You know, in prison, like there's lots of horrible things going. So like, you know, you can't just like, oh no, it's fine. It's not fine. It's terrible. And you have to, and even if it is fine, even if you're like, you know, the richest person in the planet, and you have all the comfort in the world and you got good health, even then, like, what are you doing here? You're missing out on your true nature, your true existence, and at any moment, things can change. Any moment. Horrible things can happen, horrible disease can set in at any moment. And death will come at any moment. And then you don't know where you're going to take birth. I mean, is your karma up? Is your good karma, have you finished with your good karma? You don't know. You just don't know. At any second, your bad karma flourishes or your good karma ends and this nice life is over and you take birth as God knows what. You know, so you don't know. The point is you have to use, like, the more comfortable your life may be now, the more you need to like, okay, since everything's really good, I'm going to take this opportunity to prioritize my spiritual life. Because now I can, right? I don't have to, like, I'm not running away from certain death every day. I'm not starving. I don't have to like worry about my next meal. So hey, why not do this? Why not study Uddhava-gita, Bhagavatam? Why not practice the 3T path and become enlightened? Why not? And you feel better and your life's going to be better. And that's the great thing. Like, well, I don't care how good you think your life is, it's better with bhakti. I mean, I've had that. I had a good karma. I've had really good karma. You know, I've had a great life up to now. You know, again, it can end in a second. But so far, you know, half a century, great karma. Everything's really nice. But my life became so much better when I took shelter of Krishna. So much nicer. So things are still nice, you know, good karma is still, but then I've got Krishna much better, and I know this is it's so much more important. It's incomparable. So there's no comparison to it. It's so much better. So you can take, if your life is tough, then it's a no-brainer. That's why you see like the you know, like people who are, you know, have a harder life in countries where people, you know, like countries where people in general have a harder life, they're more religious. They're more religious because, you know, life is tough and then you have some shelter. So what to speak if your life is tough, then you totally need this. So anyway, so this is the end of our first class. I hope you enjoyed it. And please share and like, make sure you're liking, become a member of the Bhakti Club so you can always have access to all these classes. So may the rest of your day be filled with joy and peace. Hare Krishna.